This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. And Finance Committee to order. Couple of little housekeeping things that I'd like to do. Well, first off, note the members present. Couple little housekeeping things that I'd like to discuss. You know, when we started down this road back in April, I suggested that we needed to find out about all these various departments and enterprise funds. And we haven't finished enterprise funds. And we sure haven't talked about any of these departments. And I've had a visit with our treasurer, and we're going to be ready to go for our mid-year review for our next meeting in the 5th. But we're going to move that up to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to start meeting at 2 o'clock. We haven't got our work done. I'm tired of leaving here at 7 o'clock at night. So we're going to start earlier, and if we go long, we go long. And we're going to schedule another meeting in sometime in this month, because we're already need to start thinking ahead about the next budget, and we need to start getting some material together for that. And based on our discussion for this first half, I'm sure we're going to have, and we're going to keep up with the regular business. So we've got a lot of work to do, and that's the way we're going to do it.
That'll be on Thursday, the 2nd.
The 5th.
I'll be here at 4.
Okay.
Thursday, the 2nd. Is that our next meeting? It's not the 5th. The 5th.
5th. February 5th.
5th is Sunday.
And these are all the things that are going to be going on, getting ready for the next budget.
Hmm?
Would be the second,
Second,
February 2nd.
did I mismark that?
Yeah, the 5th is Sunday.
Oh, okay, excuse me, my faux pas.
So you're not taking into consideration the people that work that's on your committee? Such as your school teacher?
Okay, so what's your suggestion, Counselor? Oh, by the way, there's another little housekeeping. I can't see you. So what's your deal? You want to meet every afternoon? Every
I think we
afternoon?
need to leave it at 4 o'clock so we can get here for your committee. I think
Well-
that's only fair.
I look at that a little different. We all ran for these positions. We got work to do. We're behind in our work, considerable amount, so there's,
You consider it's behind, but first of all, it's not your job to make the budget. It's the city manager's job to present a budget to us. And it's our staff's job to present a job, and it's us to finalize it and go over it. But it's not your job to create it.
I'm not suggesting I'm creating it. I just need to know more about what we're doing, because I didn't have a whole lot.
So you ran for this office and you didn't know what you were doing.
No,
So
you're putting words in my mouth with that.
that's what you said.
No.
You were putting words in my mouth when you said that I ran for this office and I was going to be taken off work.
I didn't.
Now, my kids are way more important than sitting here and trying to, create the
We'll see you.
chaos that you're creating.
You said you'd be here at 4 o'clock. Maybe you can get here at 3:30. I don't know what your schedule is. Okay, so we'll see you on the 2nd. Thank you for pointing that out, that mistake. And we've got a lot of work to do, because ultimately the elected officials are held accountable for the stuff. So we're going to take a more active role, or at least I am. The rest of you can do what you want to do, but I'm going to take a more active role. Okay, haven't done that. Number 2 on my agenda is that it's become, in the last 9 months, clear to me that, maybe just 8 months, because we're in January, that we need to tighten this committee up in its procedure a little bit. We have members of the audience are addressing each other. That's not the way this thing's going to work. So now you need to, if you remember, address the chairman and whoever else that you're doing. So it takes the personalities out of it. That's my desire. Hopefully you all will follow that. Okay. Approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda for the Finance Committee meeting January 5th.
Got a motion?
So
You a second?
I'm glad to second.
Okay.
I did have a question since we're at discussion.
Okay.
It's just for clarification as to the process of how the ITB ended up on the legal committee. I know it's irregular but if I could have clarification there.
So which item number?
That would be the newest one, 10.
Number 10.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, Counselor, the ITB is, if it's presented as an ITB and in writing as an ITB, that's my mistake. It is not supposed to be labeled as an ITB. Everything should have been changed over to an RFP, which is a request for proposal on that. The reason, and that was Tweedy Farm number item 10, the reason that one was moved to finance is because it got missed to add to the last legal agenda. And finance and legal are very similar in what they do. And I was told I could move that to finance because all we're asking at that point is to approve a scope of work so that we can take it to city council next month to start to advertise for the request for proposal and to keep the timeline on target so that we have a new tenant renting that property come May 1st. That was the reason that got moved from legal to finance.
Answer your question. So to further clarify, the present people that are leasing this property have chosen not to re-up, correct?
There are no more renewals, extensions for that lease, and it is time for that lease to go back out for bid.
And under the present lease, they have till April to move all their stuff, get their crops gathered in and all that other stuff.
Yes, sir.
So we're kind of at a time critical deal.
Yes, sir.
That's all. I just needed was clarification.
Okay. Okay. All right. So approval of minutes for November 28th and December 1st.
Didn't get a vote on the.
Okay. So we got a second. Any other questions? All those in favor of approval of the agenda? Thank you.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. So approval of minutes, November 28th and December 1st.
Well, I'll do it again. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes for the meeting of November 28, 2022, and the meeting of December 1, 2022.
Didn't realize we were going to make a motion. It usually says if there's any. Not. Okay. I'll second it.
Okay, got a motion second. Any changes or deletions to either one of those? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. Information reports.
Mr. Chair, committee members, for the growth receipts for December, we collected $3.4 million. We anticipated 3.1 for the month of December. We have a positive variance of $281,000. As you can see on the graph, we just took a little bit of a dip from the month before. You can see here a comparison from last fiscal year. Year to date, we have collected 21.6 million compared to the budgeted number of 18.4 for a positive variance of $3.1 million, 17.2% year to date. For cannabis, we received 17,870. Year to date collected is 92,598. So those are the cannabis and the GRT reports. And we'll go into lodger tax.
Let's go back for a minute.
Which one?
There you go. So we projected 92,000, we've collected 17.
No.
No?
Year-to-date collected 92.
Oh, okay.
And so,
I guess I need to go get some new glasses.
I don't believe we projected anything.
no,
Budgeted.
no.
Okay.
What was our total projection for the year?
For
Gross receipts?
was,
You're saying we're running 17% over, so what was our total?
well, 17% or from that period right there.
35 million?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, the 17% is based on the year-to-date, the fiscal year 23.
Right, but
But our total for,
Or, no, 38 million is what the actual budget was.
budget was 38 million. Okay.
any other questions? Committee?
All right, Mr. Chairman of the committee, this is the lodger's tax update for October activity that's started in November. We have 4 late hotels, which included Candlewood Suites, the Holiday Inn Oasis, Gateway, and Simple Rewards. 3 of them were received due to the holiday on 12/5, so they were not late. So the 3 additional hotels, they were postmarked correctly per our ordinance. Our STR data shows that we're about 68% occupancy, which is on par to year to date, where we should be. Our ADR, which is our average daily rate, is down about 3% in October. And it's about 5% higher overall year to date. We have 1 open position on our occupancy tax board, which is required per state statute to be a hotelier. So we are looking for somebody to sit on that board. If you have any recommendations, they can fill out a form in the clerk's office and submit that to the mayor for consideration. This is our October report. But based on the previous numbers, about 68%, these numbers will show less due to the late hotels that are actually accounted for when we receive the money. The next one is your bed fee, again, pretty on par. Again, doesn't quite affect both with the late hotels, but with what, excuse me. And I will see any questions.
So our lodger's tax collections are running substantially less than the previous year.
In the report, yes, but actually collection, we should be pretty on par. We'll see a downturn usually December, January.
Right.
That's our usual downturn.
But I was just looking, 22 in November, we did 113,000, and then fiscal year 23, we only did 73,000. That's down $40,000. I don't know whether we're going to stay on par, but our lodger's tax, what's the balance in that fund?
That one's in the fund right now. I don't know.
Okay, that's fine.
We should reach, my projections was about close to 1.2
For the year.
for the year. The way that we're averaging out, even with our lower months, if we keep pacing, we should hit it. Maybe even a little bit.
Yeah, last year we did 1.3, so okay.
And it is something to look at. And then the other thing, we have not been running any campaigns. So our fall campaign, the one thing that we did have was Phoenix. Our campaigns will start running end of February, beginning of March. Again, trying to hit the summer travel season.
Gotcha. Good.
Any other questions?
We're going to do convention center fees or no? Is that? Okay. What does it look like we're going to do with our convention center fees?
$680.
So it's going to be down from the previous year. Is that just due to the lack of demand?
Yes and no. I think some of it, we need to get our short-term rentals included on that. That would help us. They're not currently included now. And then I do think that it is, most people are traveling in an RV. But it should, I mean, it should be comparable to hotels because when they go to a hotel, they're still paying it. That it would go up, but if you're looking at it right now, I balance out, we're just in our low season.
So Airbnb is, I mean,
They don't pay the bed fee. They only pay the 5% lodger's tax. And that was changed in 2020. And we still have a lot that are non-compliant that are operating in Roswell. We've been working with community development. I actually had one this week that called and they filled out their paperwork. They are trying to do the right thing. The challenge is that they're saying VRBO or Airbnb is collecting the tax and submitting it to the city, but they're not. It's really on the ownership of the owner of the property that is supposed to submit it to the municipality. And so we don't really have anything in our ordinance to really how to do this.
Enforcement mechanisms within our ordinances are lacking, and community development will be addressing that along with public affairs so that we can tighten that up and let's just say get after additional compliance.
We send out letters, we send out certified letters where they have to sign for it. One of the other challenges that we've received with short-term rentals here in Roswell is a lot of the owners are not in Roswell. They're in California or in another state. And so then they don't sign. They're saying, oh, I never received it.
Yeah.
We do use what's called GovOS that takes screen grabs of properties that are on the market through VRBO and Airbnb. And that's what we use to send out the notifications saying that they are operating in the city.
Yeah, since we get no teeth, right?
We have
Counselor,
it's not just the short term rentals.
you address the chair, please.
No, I asked him a question.
I understand, but whenever he responds, he's supposed to say, Mr. Chair and Council.
Okay.
And are you, whenever you're done, then it'll be Councilor Perry.
Yeah.
We're learning today. Go ahead.
The answer to your question, sir, is that what we're running up against, and it's not just short-term rentals, it's these out-of-state owners, out-of-state business people, everything else. The lack of familiarity with New Mexico GRT and New Mexico taxing is an education process that we are having to perform everywhere. The next UFO festival, we have to educate all those vendors coming out that this is what's required, this is what's necessary, this is how you even, where you go on the websites, the state website, taxation website, and you register, get your number. It is a process. It is quite a process, and we are addressing it, but it is a long-term process. It is an education process that we're often running on, but it's going to take us a while to get everybody up to speed.
Yeah. Well, you're laying the groundwork now, so we'll reap the benefit. The groundwork is being laid, so we'll reap the benefits
Yes.
later.
Yes, it is.
That's fine with me. Good. Council.
Councilor Perry.
Chairman Chaos, I'm just kidding.
That's fine. I brought it.
No, Chairman and staff, my question is, we have rental properties and we have Airbnb, but not here in Roswell. The city that we have Airbnb in does not charge the fees for that. But my question is, have you communicated with Airbnb Central to see about that process? Because all of my other taxation is dealt with through the company. They handle all the rest of that, and we've ensured of that because we wanted to make sure we were in compliance with the city.
Mr. Chair and Councilor Perry, we have actually talked with State Tourism Department. So pre-COVID, they were working on like a state agreement with Airbnb and with VRBO. I actually just emailed our hospitality association because our conference is coming up in a couple of weeks and asking for a topic on that because we keep having these conversations. It would be great to have it collected in one centralized location and then they give it out to the municipality. At the time, it was something that was being worked on, that COVID happened, and it just kind of stopped. In the VRBO platform or even Airbnb, there's a section on the back end when the owner puts their property, they have to check that box. It's the money doesn't come out of the owner's pocket, it gets passed on to that person renting the property. But it is the responsibility of the owner to submit it to them. But it is something that I did ask for some additional support and guidance because I'm not sure how to get them to. And maybe that's something Weasel can assist me with.
Mr. Chair. And that's one of those things that I'm worried about because if the Airbnb is accepting or charging those fees and then not passing it on, then that's something that's highly illegal. And the owners are the ones that are being left out to dry there. And so that would be something that we definitely need to look into because I believe when I have done an Airbnb, and we've got to realize Airbnbs are getting more and more prevalent because a lot of times if I'm taking my whole family, it's a lot easier to rent a house than to rent 5 motel rooms. And so we've got to stay ahead of it and make sure, the owners are responsible, but then the company's leaving them hanging, then we've got to figure that one out. I yield.
Anything else? Okay. So is that all the information report you have for today?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
this change to go over the convention center. I see there's a bunch of information in here that you could look at that. So
Okay.
I just want to be knowledgeable. What is going on at the convention center and whether we're on track to where we feel our revenues are or will be. And
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, it's not in your report, but we just finished our kind of revenue line through December. We're at about 225 in revenue. We have made an offer to a general manager and we are negotiating salary and work schedule. What else would you like to know in the report?
yeah, it says your revenue year to date was 204,000. What was your revenue projection?
So our goal was about 34,000 per month, but according to what our revenue is, it's supposed to be closer to 60,000 per month.
So we're not,
But our goal is about 34. That's what we had projected, but in the actual budget, it's closer to 60.
so we're running short,
Yes.
substantially short.
Which is normal. A convention center doesn't usually make a profit. And I believe that's something that you guys are going to be discussing soon.
Because this is just the revenue side. We don't have the expense side here. And there's some further discussion about what business we're in and what business the city should be providing, and whether we are a convention center operator or whether the citizens of this community own the convention center and revenues be generated in a different form or fashion. So I think that needs to be further discussion and looking for you, Mr. Matthews, to maybe ask a discussion about this and where we're headed, because if we're losing, I don't know what we're losing. We need to see a P&L on convention center at some point in time to see what our actual numbers are as to revenue and expenses, and if we are losing, how much we are, why should we continue to lose money? That's the definition of insanity.
Chair and Councilor, you will have that in February.
Yeah.
We will have the first 6 months.
Yeah, great.
Mr. Matthews?
Mr. Chair, councilors, I will also be placing on the legal committee, the next meeting, just a placeholder for this discussion, to have a deeper discussion and get some, hopefully some ideas and direction of what we'd like to see going forward.
That answered my question, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else? Okay. Let's keep moving. We're now to action items. Consider the resolution approving budget adjustments for fiscal year ending in June 30th. Contained, starts at page 22 of your packet. And before we get really down in the weeds on this thing, I have a question about the fencing for the park's new location, $102,586. There are some late developing events that we may not have to spend that money. And it's not have to be done right now, is it?
No.
So
Let Mike speak. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, back when we were faced with the options of purchasing the building on College, East College, or it was just purchasing. We were at that point. I didn't feel like we were in a position financially to take on another debt for another building when we had a building that was being vacated by the police department. We expedited that move by the police department. And then we found out 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, that the sale of the building on East College did not go through. So it was still available to us. So we've chosen to continue that because we have that building through June the 30th, if I'm correct. And so between now and then, we'll have a further discussion whether or not we want to pursue a long-term lease on that building, potential purchase of that building, or renovation and move to the Cielo Grande building. So that's it in a nutshell. So since it was already budgeted through June, I was comfortable with continuing that on and until we can make some other decisions and possibly remodel if that's what I do.
is there any objections to postponing that till we have better information or little time to make sure?
Not from me, Mr. Chair. I wouldn't have any.
No. Okay, so if we eliminate that from discussion, that gets our total down to $1,036,360. If anybody's interested. Okay. That was pretty easy. Let's get started now.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee. Tonight, we're asking for an amendment to the fiscal year 23 budget in the amount of $395,488 in revenues and originally $1,138,946 in expenses, or the $1,036,360, and also including transfers. In revenues in the general fund, we did receive $299,945 for a grant for fire to purchase air packs. In the library grant, the $543 is the difference between a finalized grant award and what was projected in the original budget. And in the zoo fund, $95,000 was received for a grant for educational programs, services, and tours. In expenses, $161,693 in general fund to move the engineering lab. This does include the $102,586 for the fencing at the park location. Again, the $299,945 for the fire grant. In the library grant fund, the $543 to give them that budget authority. In the ARPA fund, $109,844. This was for the Halo air purification at the library. This project was approved in September through council. In the capital improvement fund, $69,335. This is for the library roof project. This was approved at the October council meeting. In the zoo fund, the $95,000 for the grant. And in the golf fund, $300,000 for new golf carts. And transfers would be between capital improvement fund and road fund. This is 134,450. This is the 5% match on the road grant that was previously approved. And I will stand for any questions.
Question, the engineering lab is at the same location?
Yes, sir.
So is it, Mr. Manager, you're thinking, go ahead and move?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We have a building that desperately needs a roof over here. We don't repair that. We're just going to continue to have that problem. And it'd be nice to get that lab back close to the engineer's office.
Okay. And if we got a roof that needs repair, it's got to be repaired anyway.
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it.
And I have one more comment, Mr. Chair, members. I mean, if you back up real quick to the $299 for the air packs, just for your information, they'd approve that purchase order on that. That is a grant. The vendor tells us that the price of those air packs go up 25% in February. So I went ahead and approved that purchase order so that we can lock in that price. It'll become to public safety week after next for approval, then back to finance for approval, then February, the approval of that purchase, just so you know.
Okay. Got to move. Got to move on that one, please. Any other questions? Hearing none, what's your pleasure? Item 4. Not my turn.
That's right. I don't need to be here. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the budget adjustments brought forth in this, striking the 102,586 for a later date.
You want a new total?
Go with the new total that you put.
New total without taking.
136,000 and then
360.
360.
Yeah. I didn't take my shoes off, so I could be.
Placed on the regular city council meeting for January.
Second.
Got a motion and second. Any other questions? Comments? Hearing none, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, on to allocating funds from the REACT capital operating expenditures for asbestos abatement and demolition of building 650, which is the old FedEx building immediately west of the parking lot. You get a percent,
Yes, committee members, so the cities right now, we're out to bid for the parking lot project for the air center. And building 650 is actually located where the parking lot is going to go. So we need to demolish this project. The budget, the grant money for the project does not include the demolition of this project. So the request before you is to reallocate some capital funds for this project. And we're looking at 152,342.62 cents. The funds are available. And as you can see there, the breakdown between the demolition and the asbestos abatement. And at this time, I'll stand for any questions, but this, in order for us to move forward on the parking lot project, we need to demolish this building.
Now, the parking lot funds are from grant funds?
There's a MAP grant from the FAA.
Okay. So we got to get the building out of the way.
That's correct.
Do you know when they're anticipating starting building the parking lot?
I believe when I spoke to Jennifer, she's looking at hopefully sometime like April.
Okay. Questions? No questions. What's your desire?
The building's in horrible shape. I went out, I was asking Councilor, Mr. Chairman, I was asking Councilor Foster if it was the one that we had gone and looked at, and it was, you hate to tear something down that could be utilized, but that building is beyond its livelihood. It needs to come down. I make a motion that we send a full council on the consent agenda for the approval to reallocate funds from the capital infrastructure portion in the amount of $152,345 to go to the contract demolitions portion for asbestos abatement and demo of building 650.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to recommendation services over 60,000 found on page 27.
That's correct. Mr. Chair, committee members, pursuant to the policy, anything over 60,000 requires committee recommendation. We have two items. One is from the Parks Department. And I believe Jim, can you, Mr. Chair, Jim can kind of speak to that item. I will address the Roswell Air Station, the J&G Electric CES contract for improvements and repair to the taxiway light from Alpha to DB in the amount of $65,000. Those taxiway lights have needed some repair for some time now. So again, this request is being brought before you by the Air Center to move forward with these repairs.
It would be very easy to get lost on that taxiway if you didn't know this. And DPD stands for Dean Baldwin Painting. So that's how far Alpha is a long taxi. Okay, so you want to talk about? Here's temporary labor forces. I didn't mean for you to scoot back.
Well, that's all right, Mr. Chair. I was trying to read this up there.
Oh. Go ahead, floor is yours.
All right, thank you, sir. There's like $100,000 in that line item. We opened the PO to begin with, and now we just need to increase it so we can make it out to the last 6 months. So it's already budgeted. We just need to increase the amount on the PO.
Questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
did you say that's inside your line item budget? All you're doing is just,
Yeah, there's
it's not an additional expenditure.
No, it's not additional. We just need to slide it over into the PO.
Thank you, Ms. Burris.
Any other questions? What's your pleasure?
Tell me more about, Mr. Chair, I'd like to hear more about your $65,000 for the taxi license. What I'd like to hear. Is that a new expenditure? Is that coming out? Where's that money coming out of?
It is coming out of the existing budget. I believe there was some money in the repair line item that she'll be using. She's not moving money for that expense. She does have some operating maintenance money, just,
So this is in excess of that?
She has that, well, it's a budgeted line, it's an amount that is budgeted every year for these type of maintenance and repairs items, but she's dedicated for this amount.
It's over 60.
So it's already in the budget?
It is in the budget.
Yes. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, I went out and talked to Jennifer about it, and part of the problem we have is there's just not conduit for those, and so that's what this is looking at, replacing the lights, the old lights, and putting LED lights in and putting conduit in, so we're not just having wire in the ground that's
Gophers Eat
and everything else problem. So, and for the 65,000, and we do have an inspection coming up within the next few months, and that's one of the reasons why she needs to get it okay and get it done, so it's done by the time the inspection shows up. I think it is March, but by the time we get it done,
Yeah, we'll get it done. And these old taxiway lights and stuff out there are extremely expensive whenever you're paying the electric bill. An
LED will cut that down a lot.
Yeah, newer
last longer and take less maintenance.
New airports have got what they call halo lighting. They actually don't have anything sticking out. Pretty cool stuff. But they're expensive, so we're not going to go there.
Not the length of our runways.
What's your pleasure?
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve the purchase above $60,000 as presented on the schedule. Exhibit A for the IT request, ITS, Quest Inc., and for J&G Electric to be put on the regular council agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further questions? Hearing none. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to RFP 23003, sale of the property at 316 North Dickerson.
No.
Number 7.
Item 7. Oh, excuse me, I got too many check marks here. Recommending a budget increase, operation budget by the Recreation Department, school, and discuss. Okay, that's all. Your turn.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members. Okay, I come before you tonight asking for an increase to our budget. The Recreation Fund, 2615, 4241, 53,000, contracts janitorial. The background in March budget memo submitted, we asked for a total of 116,460. What we were looking to do is we were going to get a new janitorial service, and they said, well, we can't distinguish between the pool and the rec side. So we said, okay, we'll combine it all. And I took money from the pool side and we combined it all to 116,000. And in July, I did have that. In August, the money was reduced by finance, and Jenny will have to help me on any explanation. It was reduced to 28,954. And we were instructed to come back now and ask for an increase. I was able to transfer 18,000 from other line items. So I got 46,000. And then in December, we started using, the guards are keeping the pool side spotless. They're doing a great job. So we're going to have a little savings on that as well too. And they're starting to do that. But we do need to ask for 53,000 to get us to the remainder of the fiscal year. Next slide. Okay, now this is on, we're asking for 99,000 to the outside temporary labor force for youth, adult sports leagues, aides, referees, camp counselors. We do project an offsetting revenue at about 58% of this amount. Okay, so the background on this is that I did ask it to go from 45,000 to 131,000. That was approved. But the adult center, for whatever reason, their amount did not get approved for 25, and it was not in their budget. And these are for instructors that, for all the classes that we do over there. So I had to right away transfer 25 over to theirs. Okay, and then programming doubled. So it's a kind of a good thing, a bad thing. We're doing great. And we have doubled all of our programming, but what I didn't account for, is that it brought up the amount that we needed to 225,000. Okay. So now I'm up to 225,000 that's needed for a full year. In November, I was able to use 20,000 was transferred back because I had my admin, she quit. And so I didn't hire another one so that I could save that money for this. So we've been doing without an admin on this. So, and I'm also starting to convert the ITS Quest employees to city employees. Mr. Matthews has helped me do this. Has given me the okay, and we're starting to that. So I will have some more savings, additional savings on this. So what I am needing now is 99,000 for the rest of the year for outside temporary labor service. Next slide. And then the final ask is 25,000. This is for part-time salaries for the guard. So here's the background on this one. In March, we requested 400,000. Also requested guards to become city employees to save the markup from ITS Quest, which is now at 47% markup. In May, ITS Quest sent over 88,000 worth of unpaid invoices. I did not know these were out there. We hadn't had a full year yet. and I didn't have complete information. So I think I sent over, I informed Jamie and finance that I had projected these on incomplete actuals. In July, the budget given for outside temps was 388,000. The amount we need for a full year after we added back in what was outstanding with ITS Quest is 476,933. So we were close to $89,000 short. So I was able to bring them over as city employees, and I did save 50,000, leaving us short 39,000. Okay. Now, we recently hired the vacant aquatic specialist position, and so that led to more savings. And so that's why my ask is only 25,000 on this part. Next slide. So the action I'm asking for, the request is to recommend to bring a request forward to City Council to adjust and increase the operation budgets of 4241 recreation by 152,000 and 4242 pool budget by 25,000 for a total amount of 177,000. This was taken before General Services Committee, and they recommended it to bring it to this committee, a 3-1, 3-0. I'll stand for questions.
Questions?
Mr. Chair. In general services, we did also ask Colette to look at the janitorial services instead of hiring out contractors now, possibly depends on the actual things to save on costs. It won't make a difference in this one, but in the future.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to commend Mrs. Hall for the great work she's doing over there.
Thank you, sir.
Because you found a way to get around and only ask for $25,000 for the pool when you didn't have all complete data for the year. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
Moving those things around. And I commend you for being active and managing those numbers and, you know, your increase in the usage by people over at the adult center and those kind of things will increase costs, but it's great to see that you have more requirements out there means citizens are utilizing your facility. So that speaks good for you too. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. And I want to commend her too, because of, you know, it's nice to have it to the point where we're needing more because people are using the facility. And so, you know, it'd be real easy to not have our costs down to nothing because nobody's going out there. But that's why we're there. We want the people to come out and use our facilities. My one question is, this is going to come from the cash reserve, or where are we pulling 177,000 from?
Chair, Councilor Foster, it would be, have to be funded with general fund. The reason the budget was cut when she talked about it being cut in August by finance was because their expenditures were exceeding the revenue that they were going to get in to cover all of their expenses plus their debt service. So we were instructed to do a budget cut as opposed to adding money. There's a little confusion when we did budget. I wasn't aware that we were still doing like a 50-50 split with recreation. I think Colette and Juanita are under the assumption there was still a 50-50 split, sort of like the 70-30 split with the other. That was never talked about in our budget, not with them, but with our budget meeting as management. So that wasn't calculated in. So when the cash balance was all used, their expenses still exceeded their revenue. We were instructed to make a cut. So we cut out a janitorial so we didn't hit a bunch of her line items. So that's going to have to come from general fund. She's not going to make enough revenue to cover her expenses.
So we'll be pulling it from the general fund. I mean, we do have a $3 million surplus right now
Yeah.
surplus in GRT. Right now, I don't want to be touched and reserve yet, but we have 3 million. So if that's what we're looking for to come out of, I mean, which we already planned at the end of the year anyway for if we didn't have our 70/30s and our 50/50s didn't hit, that's what was gonna help us through that. So, but that's what I was just.
One more, but that is part of the budget. The first quarter that I did, I listed recreation as having a deficit that would be covered. So the numbers you all saw from the first quarter has about $500,000 in there for recreation.
Any other questions? What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we place on the city council agenda to increase the budgets for 4241 by 152,000 and 4242 full budget by 25,000. We place on the regular city council agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Now we're going to talk about the sale of property at 316 Wilkerson.
Mr. Chair, councilors, asking for your consideration of approval for RFP 23003 for the sale of 316 North Richardson for the city of Roswell. The property used to be the old business Ocean site. It was donated to the city of Roswell Library. So the funds from this sale will go back to the library. The library did not have a need for the property. So an RFP was created and presented at legal committee meeting on August 25th, 2022, with a vote of 3-0 to send to city council. The consent agenda was approved 10/10 on September 8th of 2022 at city council. So we were able to move forward with that RFP. Next slide, please. So it was issued and opened out on September 18th, and then the proposals were closed out on November 8th. Legal has reviewed the RFP 23003, and the selection committee did evaluate and score the RFP on November 18th. We got one submittal for the property, and that was the neighboring Miniatures and Curious Collections Museum. If you approve the sale, go to full city council for approval. And then the last step in the approval process, of course, everything sold over 25,000, I believe, has to be reviewed by the state. They give their final blessing. But they did score very well with their, you should have the award recommendation report in your packet. They did score a 106.67 out of a possible 135, understanding the qualifications and financial capacity, level of return on investment for the city of Roswell, understanding the amount of active scope of work to bring the building up to code, because it is in disrepair and does need a lot of work. They also submitted information that was consistent and adopted with city plans and ordinances. They have a good projected timeline. And of course, they are giving us the minimum price that we're asking for the appraised property of $30,000. And with that, I am here for any questions.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, staff, a couple of questions. Number one, are they expanding or moving?
They would be expanding, sir.
Okay, and second question is, how much have we spent? Because, I've toured that facility over there a couple of times. How much have we spent on what we've done for from where the building was to where it is now when we received it.
I do not have that information. That was done
Yeah.
I think long before. I don't know if anybody might.
Mr. Chairman, Councilor Perry, I don't know what that number is, but I know the city did pay to abate that. Because at one time, city manager was looking at potentially moving enforcement into that building. After review, after we abated and everything, and look at the condition of the roof, the timbers in the roof and stuff, it was decided, and the parking outside of it was decided that wouldn't be a good location for the code enforcement department. So that was dropped at that point, but I don't recall what the abatement of the asbestos out of their cost. We have that number. I just don't have it with me.
We abated that asbestos, and I mean, we tore down a lot of.
Yeah, we get it. The building's gutted.
Yeah, completely gutted down to just raw.
Yes.
And so I know there's expense that's been involved in that. I'm just wanting to see sort of where that is. If we've paid 55,000 or 75,000, it's, to sell it for 30,000, but I'm just, and also it says on here on the award recommendation, 3 asterisks, and there's a recommendation of getting more detail, specific projection time.
Yes, sir.
So what are they looking at for?
Mr. Chair, Council, I don't have that information back from them yet on their projected timeline. I do anticipate having that information back from them by the time we take that to council.
And my only last question is, do we know if they are a 501 or if they?
Yes, sir, they are a 501c3.
Okay. And I'm not, except for, we'd hope to get it back on tax rolls. But, with 501, that doesn't happen. But that's not necessarily the only reason. I'm a big proponent of government owning less. I'm a big proponent, so I'm not against getting rid of building that's not utilized. But those are some questions I'd like answered before we get to full council.
Well, the other thing, we've heard that the roof is in a mess. So we're going to go spend $100,000 for a roof to keep renting the building or whatever the arrangement is now. I mean, time to cut loose. I agree.
I think government needs to own less. I shouldn't be in, that's not what we're here for, should be in that kind of business. So.
You and I are in full agreement on that point. Okay, what's your pleasure?
That won't make it in the minutes.
Yes, Counselor.
I do have a question on, do we have any clawback or anything? Is there any guarantee of the work done on the building? I mean, this is downtown and I would hate, I know they have the building right next to it, but if they don't do anything to that building and it caves in, there'll be a big blight. And so it's one of those things that, is there any guarantee of in the agreement with them?
At this point, Mr. Chair, Councilor, I don't think, I think this is just a straightforward property sale to sell it over. Everything that was in their proposal that was scored showed that they had every intent of making right with the building, that they definitely need the space and have the mechanisms in place to move forward. Outside of potentially getting them to also agree to a development agreement that had some sort of clawback. But at this point, legally, I don't believe we have anything built into the sale yet that would specify that.
Well, I just don't want to see that eventually nothing happens to it and eventually we end up having to deal with it on.
Yes, sir.
Later on down the road. And I concur with Councilor Perry. I think the less we own, the better. But it's also one of those things that we don't want to hurt our downtown. And I know there are already downtown merchants there. So hopefully they're invested in improving it. So, but a lot of times when we make these sales, We usually have kind of a development agreement just to make sure that we don't end up having to revisit it 5 years later or 10 years later and nothing's happened. So I do think when we sold the building on Main Street, there was a clawback, or there was so much work they had to put into that building. So.
Councilor Perry.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to say the majority of property that we have sold in the past for development has had fallback attached to it. I can think of one property in particular, I won't name the folks, they weren't able to put it together, but had purchased out on West College over near the Cielo Grande area. And in their time frame were unable to do what they needed to do. And it ended up being a good thing that the city repossessed that, because that's going to be something that we'll be able to utilize in the future now that things have changed. So clawbacks is not an unusual thing.
Mr. Chair, if your request, the committee's request that we do a development agreement with these folks, I'm sure that they would be more than happy to comply with that. There is some language in the scope of work that, they do understand that once they purchase it, that goes along with their timeline, they do have to develop it. So they came into this understanding that, but if we need some stronger teeth into that, I'm sure we can work something up to protect us so that if we sell it, then they follow through with the project.
You don't think that was blindsided if you go into negotiation on a development agreement because you think the RFP was broad enough that you have that option?
No, sir.
Okay, he says you won't have trouble.
Well, I mean, I don't anticipate any trouble because they do have the understanding, but everybody has an understanding until they don't. So if we need some stronger teeth, I'm going to follow your recommendation and say, well, yeah, we can write it up and I know they want the property. And so if that's going to be something that we require for the final sale and purchase, then I believe that they're participants.
Mr. Chair, one of the things that we could do, we could be very lenient on the development agreement. We could put 10 years on it. We could put a big, that they will get it done. Not saying they have to get it done right away. It's in their best interest. They want to probably get it done right away. But since we went into it without that, we could be generous on that side of it. But I think that when you show people that we're selling a building that's downtown for $30,000, we know that it's not in the best of shape. 99% of the people in this town don't know that. And they're looking at, well, this is such a sweetheart deal that we're selling these people. Who do they know downtown? We know that that's not what it is. We know that we did an RFP. We know we did all those things, but just so that we have every I dotted and every T crossed, it would be nice that we had development agreements when we were selling buildings, just so that, in the future, they know that we're going to expect it. And we have in the past clawed stuff back, and we're in positions now on some other things that we have sold that we could claw back if we so needed to. And just so that we have it with everyone. So it's more of a cookie cutter that when we're selling businesses or selling buildings.
Yes, sir. I work with legal to make sure that gets done.
Mr. Chairman, one other small thing. It doesn't have to be a shall. It can be a may. We may not want it back.
Yeah.
It can be a may to where the city has the option to that. Just throwing that out there. You don't have to always force yourself into that situation.
Well, to this point, could they back out still? Assume they could. No money's changed hands.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, if we make it 2,
Yeah.
then they'll say, changed my mind.
Mr. Chair,
Sir.
I'm going to ask legal, our counselor is that when you put these RFPs out, do you not have to identify the development agreement as a part of that process?
Mr. Chairman, to Counselor, not explicitly, but there has to be some indicia of what is actually going to, we're looking for more than just a sale of land.
Right.
So this RFP does include more than just a sale of land. Like if we were just doing a pure sale of land, I'd just recommend auction, frankly. So yeah, so by virtue of being an RFP, we're constrained by the RFP itself, but it's contemplated in this one.
But it needs to be a disclosed item in the RFP is my question.
Yes.
As we talk about these development agreement, it needs to be disclosed in the RFP. And in this case here, my question then is, was that disclosed in this RFP?
Yes, sir. I believe there is language in that RFP. To understand the full scope of work, it's explained the condition of the building and what is expected of whoever is bidding on that building, what they have, the contingency, like, okay, you're gonna offer us $30,000, but that's not just it. You have to develop it. We're not selling it for $30,000 to sit vacant.
Right.
So the scope of work does cover.
So I want to make sure that we're disclosing that on the RFP. Just making sure we got full disclosure so that someone doesn't come back and say it's an argument.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. What's your pleasure?
It's your turn. Go ahead.
Somebody generate proposition. Not much, but nickels and dimes soon add up.
Property is saving us more money than it's generating, but
I don't disagree with that thought.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to place on the consent agenda the sale of the RFP 23003, the sale of 316 North Richardson for the amount of $30,000.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to talk to Mr. Mavers next about the increased fees for the review and processing of development applications within the planning and zoning. Mr. Mavers.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Tip again our slides. Actually, back up just a little bit. There you go. What we presented before you tonight is the opportunity to update our planning and zoning fee schedule. It is, to the best of my knowledge, the understanding that our planning and zoning fee schedule has not been updated in the better part of a decade. We realized this as we were putting together the fee schedule for the cannabis projects, and we started looking at what our actual costs were associated with the review of those projects and the review and the time and effort it took to put things together. What we're trying to do now is bring the balance of the zoning and development code into parity with what we've already done with the cannabis ordinance. So what we'd like you to do is review the document, and then if it's your pleasure to recommend approval to the city council for the next agenda. Next slide. Again, it's been proposed to update and develop a schedule of fees for development applications. What you have before you is, I believe, 5 or 6 pages. These are all of the different permits, applications, and things that come out of our planning and zoning division. This does not include our building and inspections division. It does not include code enforcement. This is just planning and zoning. These are all the different things that we deal with every single day. And what we're trying to do is a little bit of cost recovery here, much like many of the other departments are doing. We're looking at the total cost of what it takes to put together a project and to get it forward either to the Planning and Zoning Commission, to the City Council, whatever it takes. But we're trying to come up with an equitable and reasonable reimbursement that is equivalent to the time, resources, and the complexity associated with accurately reviewing these projects and processing these applications. Next slide. Again, Appendix A of the Roswell Municipal Code allows us to develop a fee schedule for project applications, and they are reviewed and processed within the city's planning and zoning. The fees, and again, you've got 5 pages of fees here. Again, all the different things that we do every single day to assist not just builders and developers, but the average homeowner. The average homeowner comes in, they need a placement permit, they need a fence permit, they need one of these other things. And what we want to do is, again, create a reasonable reimbursement for the professional services we provide. Next slide. In addition to updating the current fees and developing additional fees pursuant to Exhibit A, we will consolidate and organize all application fees that are reviewed and processed within the Planning and Zoning Division into a single document for streamlined access and implementation. This is all part of what we're trying to accomplish with the new Development Services Center. We are focusing on customer service. We want to have answers and information for people at our fingertips. So having a single source for knowing where to go and being able to provide people with the fee schedule at a click of a mouse, it's just part of bringing a better customer service to the city. Next slide. Again, the rationale for the update, again, the city employs a professional staff that provides services directly. These are not like, this is not like the zoo. This is not like the aquatic center. It's not like any of these others. These are services that are provided on an individual basis to people that need a particular permit for a specific issue. Again, it's services directly to property owners, business owners, developers, builders, and homeowners. Again, the city provides these professional services to the project applicants at significant cost. And we're trying just to recapture just a little bit of that. The value of the services provided greatly exceeds the fees collected for professional services. Next slide. Similar to the recent updated cannabis fee schedule, the desire is to achieve a 50 to 70% cost recovery on labor associated with review and processing of planning division applications. Prior to coming up with this methodology, I actually surveyed, I called and I went on the websites for a number of different cities here in Southeast New Mexico, as well as a couple of the larger cities up north. I quite honestly don't understand if there's any rhyme or reason to anyone's fee schedule. Okay. We have one city that is essentially a 100% recapture. So if we were having this meeting and we were talking about a development project, every single person sitting at this table would submit an invoice. That invoice would then be passed along. So we'd be looking at several $1,000s per hour, okay, to review a project. On the other hand, we have some cities that charge nothing, although they are discussing charging something because their costs have gone up. Okay. We are looking at 100% cost recovery on direct costs. This is something that I realized when we were putting together the cannabis fee schedule, is that the cost of mailing, the cost of advertising is going through the roof. Planning and Zoning Division is having to make direct budget transfers every single month just to cover the cost of mailing anymore, just to cover the cost of advertising every single month. And our current fee schedule does not even begin to recover just the cost of advertising. Next slide. Okay. Again, this is an example of how, and we went through every single one of those line items. My staff, my team did. Okay. Average hourly rate for mid-level, and we didn't take the low, we didn't take the high, we went right in the center. But between their salary, benefits, and other things, we assumed about $50 an hour. Typical time associated processing the application, 8 hours to work with the project applicant to complete the application and submittal process. We had a lot of applications coming through our doors that need massaging. They need assistance. They need people to walk them through the process so they understand it. 8 hours to write a staff report. If you've ever taken a look at the Planning and Zoning Commission staff reports, they are lengthy. They are time consuming to put together, and each one is individual. There is no check the box. Each one has to be written up for each particular project. About 3 hours to prepare advertising and public noticing, depending on the total number of people that have to be notified, and typically 1 hour at a public hearing. Okay? Typical time associated with processing of conditional use permit, 20 hours of labor at $1,000. Next slide, please. Okay. $1,000, 50% cost recovery is $500, 70%, $700 on your on the resolution that's presented in front of you. We split the middle and we're asking for $600. Now, for all conditional use. We went through this process with every single one of these. That's why it's taken so long to get it to the committee at this point. Note, the fee calculation does not include any time or cost recovery for final review or editing by the director. I look personally at every single application that comes through. Verify that it's put together correctly, verify that it's accurate, and the information that's been presented. This is especially true of SUPs and CUPs where we're attaching conditions of approval or attaching special provisions of development. We want to make sure that we're getting everything that is needed in order to make sure the project moves forward appropriately. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. Again, there's no direct financial cost or impact to the city associated with the resolution, no cost. What we're hoping to do here is recover some of our expenses a little bit. City attorney has reviewed and approved the resolution as to form, and this today is the first opportunity for y'all to look at it. Next slide. And again, we'd like you to consider recommending the city council to hold a public hearing and vote on the proposed resolution to update and develop the schedule of fees for review and processing of development applications. That's it for questions.
Questions? Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Many times when we have fees brought before us, what I like to see is what we're currently charging and what we're proposed change. Just so that, I mean, I don't know if we're currently charging, $1,000 for major developments and now we're going to go up to 5,000. I want to see the difference. Just because when a contractor hits me with this, I can say, well, come on, things go up. And he goes, yeah, but you've gone up 400%. I want to be able to know and be able to. And so just seeing this, it's really hard for me to just say, yes, go ahead with this. I would like to see what the difference is.
Mr. Chair and Councilor, I can obviously bring that forward to you next month if that's your desire. In my experience and talking to our builders and developers, these fees, even with the increases that we're showing here, are a infinitesimally small portion of a total cost of development. Okay. The numbers look big because we have, again, 4 or 5 pages here of fees for things. The schedule that I will bring back to you of what we charge right now is 1 page. Okay. There's a lot of stuff we just give away for free. We just give away. But in my experience and in discussing this with developers and builders and developers, honestly, they look at a city's fee schedule about what they care about is the time and process.
Yeah.
That is what is important to them. Until they get their permits, until they get something built, until they get their business license, until they have sell, okay, they don't make any money. So most builders and developers fees into their total cost of development. So if you're looking at a few $100s in fees for a $300,000 home, we're talking about on a percentage basis, very, very little. Okay. What they always, every single person, and this has been the focus of our department since the day I came on board, is increasing the speed at which we process, increasing the customer service, increasing the ability of people to move through as quickly as possible. And to that end, we've hired a couple of people, customer service agents, specialists. I even take my projects that come in across my desk as well and help move them forward. So I can certainly provide you with that information, sir, but I don't believe it is a major issue for our building and development community, whether it's 1,000 or 5,000. Their question is going to be, how soon?
Anything else?
Well, the other thing that would be nice to go with it, and I know you said you looked and we went from 0 to, all the way up to very high. What other cities in the area, just that document so that we have that.
What cities are you interested in?
Well, in this area, well, you said you already,
Carlsbad,
Hobbs,
Artesia, North, Clovis, yes, thank you. But I also looked at Albuquerque and I looked at Las Cruces.
So if you have those numbers, that would be cool.
I've actually had a couple of developers ask me if I'd be willing to go to Las Cruces and help them out. Because evidently they have difficulty over there in getting things processed and approved. Okay. I want to, with the impending opening of the Development Services Center, I want to continue to be able to provide world-class customer service. Okay. And since this is a professional service being offered to everybody, I do believe there's an expectation that we should recover at least some of our charges, if not all of them at some point.
I know. When I look at one of the fees, I know it's only $25, but the RV and large vehicle placement permit, if I own property in town and I did have a gentleman come to me that had a vacant lot and he had 20-foot shipping containers on it and had dealings with your department, and he was highly upset when they were telling him where he could place them on his vacant lot for sale. And my problem I have is we don't go out to Crumlin and tell them where they can park their cars. So those things. And so if we're charging $25 per, say we have an RV lot in town, are we going to charge them $25 to where they can park their RVs?
No, that would be covered by the development permit for the project. Again, you're talking about commercial placement versus placement on an individual lot.
Right.
Okay. And we haven't gotten any recently, but I would estimate once, maybe twice a month, we get calls through our code enforcement division about people improperly parking their RVs.
Right.
And we have to deal with it. And we have to send our people out. They have to go and, address the situation. It's a lot like in code enforcement is a lot like our police department. The call comes in, we have to respond. It's our responsibility to respond. Okay. Whether anything comes of it or not, that depends on how our codes are written and whether or not an actual violation has occurred. But again, RVs seem to be a source of concern for certain areas of the city.
But under our current code, someone can park one in their backyard. Are we going to charge them $25 to tell them where they can park it in their backyard?
Quite honestly, I don't think we've ever charged anyone anything for, I can't remember the last time somebody came in and got an RV placement permit. We send it out as when we get a complaint, we basically handle it through code enforcement and say, hey, can you move it? It's like we're too close to the, again, that's why we're bringing this forward, is to begin the discussion.
And that's why my question would be, if we're going to have an RV permit, then we better be charging it, because otherwise, why have it?
Hey, the other thing, though, from what it's my understanding with an RV placement permit, again, the pursuant to our building code. All right. People are allowed to live in an RV on a site during the construction of a single-family residential home. Okay, that's where that would come in more than anything. It's not intended to tell people that, I've got a 12-foot side yard and I want to park an RV on my side yard out of the public right of way. It's not intended that. It's my understanding that we're utilizing it primarily for people that want to move an RV onto a site in a temporary fashion during the construction of another single family residence.
Councilor Perry.
My question is process only, not on the actual content, but on process only. It's a resolution. And this says here that we're going, that the recommendation is for city council to advertise, hold a public meeting. And it says legal review, but I don't remember us ever having a public hearing for resolution. So I'm trying to. So are we going to be a resolution?
That's probably just a typo. That shouldn't be. So, yeah, what I could say about resolutions versus ordinances generally for funding is certain things must be done through ordinance, especially if we want to have these. So the water program, for example.
Right.
This is legally sufficient as a resolution, a prerogative of your guys.
And it's better to be done through resolution, in my opinion. Just wanted to make sure and clarify that we weren't about to go through a.
Yes, no, it's a standard resolution. There's no ordinance-ness attached.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Councilor Foster that we should see what our existing fees are. And also agree with you, Mr. Mavers, that speed is of the importance. People when they want to do permits, two things. They want the permit complete and they want their inspections cost of money. So, but I do have a question because I had discussion with the previous city manager concerning the extension fees. And I see that you have not raised those at all.
I have not. I need to, quite honestly, that's a larger discussion for a bigger group, which would include obviously our city engineer, the directors of the various utilities. And so at this point, I have not been able to have that discussion yet. So we were just moving those fees over.
I would like to see you have that discussion so that we can get this all wrapped up into one package if possible.
Absolutely, I can do that.
Because those fees have been, how long, 10 years?
Yeah, they're probably as old as all the other fees. Yes.
Yeah, and those are really impact fees is what they really are. And so, and I don't know whether we look at also placing impact fees in our fee structure. Have you thought about that idea? Because other communities do have those impact fees.
If the direct answer to your question is no, I have not started a discussion about impact fees. There has been some general discussion in the background, but I did not know what the city council's and this committee's opinion was of raising or starting to charge other impact fees. We can certainly look into it. I think we need to bring it back though. And if the city attorney would help me out here, do we need that with impact fees? Do we need to bring that back as a separate resolution or a separate ordinance?
Mr. Chairman, Councilor, the impact fees would have to be their own ordinance. There's a state statute with impact fees. Now, what I will say about them, they're going to be touched on briefly during the MERP workshop because impact fees are a waivable form of fee. So if we choose to structure moving forward in an impact fee apparatus, we can now provide incentive for developers for improving things like that.
Correct.
Which is a thing we haven't utilized to improve development opportunities in the city.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and Councilor Jeanette, we can certainly start looking into that immediately and bring it back for this committee within the next 30, 60 days with a proposed ordinance to update and resolve our impact fee situation, because you are correct, sir. Our impact fees have not been, they've not been addressed.
No, and I believe we need to do that. It's a sign of moving ahead, getting these things money set aside for what they mean is the impact on the city for these growth items and how do you fund those? A perfect example is Country Club. Now, if we had some impact fees there, we could have looked at how Country Club would be expanded and would be taken care of from impact fee. And we don't have that. So I think that's something that needs to be at least addressed and looked at and have this council decide whether that's where we want to go with these kind of things.
Mr. Chair and Councilor, I totally appreciate that. Any community that's in a growth mode needs to be thinking about what do we do with our sewer, our water.
Yes.
The other thing though that I would request that if everyone could give some thought to and get back to me, we are, I believe our water department right now is looking at an updated conservation and resource management program that should include purple pipe and the utilization of reclaimed water. Obviously, we don't have that at this time anywhere in the city. And if we're going to be looking at total impact fees, I believe that the reclaimed water should probably be one of those things, along with anything else that we need to look at. So I would just request that the committee give some thought to that, shoot me an email with, hey, these are the things that we think should be addressed in an impact fee ordinance.
Yeah, I would ask you that because I think some communities even go as to the impact on police and fire and look at those kind of things as a portion of that impact fee. So I guess I'm going to ask you, do our surrounding neighbors have impact fees? Number one, and what do their impact fees consist of? What do they try to include in their impact fee?
I will look into that for you and get back to you right now. I do know it's very similar to the traditional developer fees.
Yeah.
Some do, some don't. And there's quite honestly, I cannot logically source out how they came up with those particular things. Which is why I want to take a good hard look at this, apply some logic and rationale, which is why with all due respect to the questions that came before, I did not provide what we were doing before or any of this because it is confusing at best and irrational at worst.
I understand that. I think what we're trying to get with Councilor Foster's question is just lay these down and we see, okay, what are new? What are the new ones compared to what our old ones were? And I think that's what you're probably going to see here, not only just the cost, but what our new fees are and what we're looking at there. So I think you've got plenty of work to do to present back to this committee and move this ahead so that we can take some looks at it and proceed it to council. So I am asking at this point in time, unless there's further discussion, is there further discussion? Because my idea is, Mr. Chairman, is that we postpone this and ask it to come back.
Ballpark. My question is, in light of not having this other data, what percentage basically did these increased fees, what we're charging, what is that percentage? 25%, 10%, 30%?
Well, in some cases, we aren't charging anything at all. So I guess it'd be,
100%.
Well, it's not just 100%, it's, an infinite percentage, Some fees are going up. The fees that we do charge, 25 to 50% increase. Again, that's why I was looking at a 50 to 70% cost recovery, not a 100% cost recovery. I'm assuming this over the next year, 2, 3, much like what we're doing with our lease agreements, that we will accelerate that fee schedule annually or biannually. But we need to develop a mechanism for updating fees as necessary. Obviously, the city's costs are going up, labor costs are going up, our ability to provide services and the demands on our services are increasing, and we want to meet that need. So the Development Services Center we're going to need additional staff, we're going to need additional equipment and everything else so we can meet the needs of our homeowners, our businesses, our developers, everybody. This is a good time to begin this discussion and have this discussion, because it is my understanding from our real estate division manager that we're looking at possibly starting to move into the Development Services Center the end of this month.
23rd.
23rd.
It's pretty close to the end. Okay, so is there any other questions? So from our discussion, I'm assuming that there wouldn't be any objection to moving this off of today's agenda, and whenever he gets his work done, just give us a heads up and we'll get it right back on. Any objection? Okay, we're going to pass item 9, the future then.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, item 10, Todd, you back up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, councilors. So RFP 23005 is the new Tweedy Farm lease. If it says anywhere ITB 23008, I apologize. That is my typo on that, so please ignore. Is it's more than just an invitation to bid, which is what I was looking at. But then after talking with purchasing, there is more criteria to consider in the scope of work than just a single number. So that's why it's become an RFP. So Brian Sons, a little bit of history on this. Brian Sons has been farming that site since 1987. The current lease is set to expire December 31st of this year. It's already expired. No more options to renew. There is a signed MOU that allows them time for harvesting the remaining crops until April of 2023. And like I said, so I could keep the lease agreement schedule on track and we wouldn't lose any revenue. Since it got missed by legal, I was told to bring it to finance so that we will still hit January's city council. We have time to advertise, get the RFP back in, select a new bid winner for the lease and pick up revenue right in May, and we won't have any gap in revenue. So the RFP 23005, city has 382.61 acres known as Tweedy Farm for lease. Land is used for farming wheat, corn, and cotton. Property has 2 orbital sprinkler systems that are part of the city property now that will remain for the next leasee to use. The city is asking for bids. The price per acre, the minimum bid to qualify, along with the rest of the RFP requirements, is $105 per acre and must agree to the terms and conditions of the lease agreement. So to back up a little bit, understanding that we didn't have a development agreement in the sale of 316 North Richardson, we're presenting a lease with the RFP so that whoever is bidding on this knows exactly all the terms and conditions of what they're getting into. The city attorney has updated the lease agreement to our base lease agreement that is similar to Allison Farms and the rest of those farmlands that we have. Leases are under contractual agreements, generally require approval by majority vote of the governing body. So please consider the scope of work for RFP 23005, land farm lease for Tweedy Farm. And I remain for any questions.
Got a couple of questions. Okay, this slides from the railroad track to the, I forget the name, Omaha Road, I think, in front of Macrino, east and west, and then right in the southeast corner or the lower right of this property is a retaining pond.
Yes, sir.
And that's not considered in your, that's been taken out.
The total calculated land size of 382.61 to simplify it, that 9 acres has already been taken out as what they're paying price per acre. So we don't, because it was confusing, because they're like, well, how much land are we exactly leasing? Well, it's this minus that, and it's, so we simplified it to the 382.61 acres.
Questions? Counselor?
Mr. Chairman, Todd, this question is for you. If you go to the scope of work draft, which is on page 3 of 6, page 47, the base amount shall be increased by the appropriate consumer price index or 3%, whichever is greater. Is that annually? It doesn't say.
Yes, sir.
How often? It's not specific in here because you're saying the rent.
It's typically annually. If it's not written as annually, then we'll make sure that it is.
It just clarifies it.
Yes, sir. It will clarify.
No other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else?
The circles, pivots, or the 2 orbital sprinkler systems, is it? I haven't read through the whole thing. Is there, since it is being left with the property and becomes part of our city property, do we have to maintain it?
The maintenance on all of that is still the responsibility of the new tenant.
Okay. That's it. I didn't want to
Yes.
end up finding out that we have to replace 2 orbital sprinklers and only getting 40,000 or something a year and having to spend way more than that on. Okay.
Chair, Councilor, in section 5 on maintenance, it does say leasing at its sole cost, and expense shall maintain.
For Hildebrand. Wait a minute, hold on. Are you through, Counselor?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes, again, thank you, Mr. Chair. When I look at the actual lease agreement, it's incomplete. You look at page 1 of 8, item 1. The term of this agreement is from, and it just goes period.
Correct. We won't have all the, Hess, he left. But he was supposed to put in the new terms of the lease agreement. And you're correct, they're not, those left blank. So make sure that those are accurate.
Yeah, and then in item 2 is where the CPI is, so that's the actual lease agreement.
Yeah.
We will adjust that as well, please.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So the previous lease we had with Mr. Sons, it was a 5-year lease with how many additional 5-year options?
I believe that one was, Mr. Chair, I believe that one was a 5-year lease with 5 one-year extensions that were there.
You know, go ahead.
Well, and it's unclear, but if he's been on that property since 1987, I don't know whether he's been on that property for 35 years.
Yep.
And so I don't know how many leases he's gone through with us.
Well,
He's been on that property for a long time.
Suggest having some knowledge about farming. I've got the plan today for what I'm going to have in the field next year, not this year, not what I'm fixing to grow and plant, but if I'm going to change from cotton to corn or to milo or put it all in alfalfa, I would suggest that at some point of discussion be made not to do multiple 1-year leases, but to do maybe multiple 5-year leases. It gives them an opportunity to make long-term plans because nothing in agriculture moves very fast.
Yes, sir.
I mean, the charters move every day, but for long-term planning, what I'm going to do, that's the magic of being a farmer, is figuring out what produce is going to make you the most bang for your buck.
And that may have been the reason that it was left blank, so that we could have some discussion on that. Like I said, I don't know that.
Well, what's the deal across the road, across State Road 2, or actually, I think it's Atkins until it gets down to 5 Points. What's the lease? Because we own that property too. And that's what I used to call Twitty Farm. And this is what I used to call Section 6.
Okay.
But anyway, what's the agreement we have with the group across the hall, across the road there?
I will have to look at that to refresh my memory on that, sir.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, may I ask how many water rights are available? How many acre feet? 388.
Acre feet.
That's what I read in here.
Times 3.
Yeah, well, yes, it would be the ×3 per year.
Yeah, so it gives you an acre, roughly an acre foot per acre, which is, may mean you have, if you grow some really wet crops, you'd have to abandon one sprinkler system, which is important for the planning out several years. So anyway, take a look at the adjacent property immediately to the east of that, and let's see what the lease is there,
Yes, sir.
and at least make them similar in terms of longevity.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I just had a question on the evaluation process. Who chooses the evaluation teams in processes like this, with it being going, you know, we have two ways we can do this, but with going through RFP, how do we determine the evaluation process, the team?
Well, this would be my second time having to pick a team for this evaluation. I don't know. I honestly haven't gone that far yet on this one. The last one for the Richardson building, there was some suggestions made on who in the city staff would be good selectors on that committee who had background in that area. I have not reached that point yet here on this one to get a selection committee together. So
Thank you. Got all those circles.
Okay. Can we proceed with the RFP with all these unknowns?
Yes, sir. We can make the needed change of the recommendations that you made. You can make the adjustments with the city attorney on that before the RFP goes out.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? What's your pleasure?
So we can get out of here. I'll make a motion that we send RFP 23005 Twitty Farms to a full city council with changes coming from our land office and our legal department.
Okay, I got a motion.
Second.
Got a second. Any further questions? Comments? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. And so, yeah, but you're looking at. Now we need to go to public participation. Anybody have any questions online? We'll go to those first. Anybody? Caller 01's got green, whatever that means.
Oh, that's you.
That's us. Oh, no, caller one down at the bottom.
Just mean the caller's not muted.
Oh, okay.
But they haven't said anything.
Hearing none. Any public comments for the few that are still here? Oh, Miss Rita, I would have been disappointed.
Rita King Dorhofer, very narrow, unstriped, Chicago Cubs mailbox, Smart Road. Mr. Chairman, councilors, and everybody else that's here listening. I've got a couple of questions. I thought we were doing a workshop on the MIRP, and I don't know when that is. If we are, well, you put it out so we can find that. Number two, I'm having some real problems, and I'm getting some information on the Great Blocks program. Maybe when this committee has some time, you can go over that.
So what? I'm sorry.
Great Blocks. Yes. I mean, I asked for a copy of a map or a diagram And I was told that there are 234 pages. So I'm just saying, I'll be here tomorrow looking at that. Number 3, I'm having some real issues with the landfill. And maybe you can go back and look at those. And number 4, I've been through the finance committee many, many years. And when Caleb Grant was the chairperson, the meetings were at 8 o'clock in the morning and nobody complained. When Councilor Perry was chairman of the finance meeting, they were at 9 o'clock. I figured because he has to get his kids up and to get to school. So that's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Speak now for the whole, please. We're gonna, the question about the MRF is pending. I talked to the mayor about what his desire was, didn't get a response yesterday. I think he is out of pocket right now, and I suspect we'll get something hopefully put together, but that's in his bailiwick, so to speak. Fair enough. Okay. Sir.
Mr. Chairman, councilors, just real quick, I did send you some photographs yesterday. We did receive 2 of our new fire trucks. The third one is coming off the line this month. They're going to hold on to it because the 4th one will be finished in February, and they'll bring the 2 of those down in February.
You need a volunteer to drive any of those back.
You'll regret
it. All the way. I always wanted to drive fire.
all the way from Florida.
Oh, wow.
I can do that. I did that.
Yeah, did you?
I can do that. I've done it before in an RV. That's close enough. 38 footer.
They won't let you smoke a cigar in a fire truck.
Okay, then I guess we're good for today. Thank you all. Appreciate it.